The DA leader and Cape Town Mayor Geordin Hill-Lewis was in Delft yesterday to make what he has dubbed the stronger policing pledge. It's a pledge that if the DA is successful in the 2026 local government elections, that will target the massive backlogs, the systemic failures within national policing, especially when we look at the Western Cape and Cape Town's serious and violent crime rate, especially if you look at the ongoing gang and gun violence that plagues a city like the city of Cape Town. Mayor Geordin Hill-Lewis and DA leader joins me now. Good morning, Geordin. Really appreciate your time. You're
Good morning,
essentially
Lester.
saying that if successful by November, the DA will be implementing what it calls its own detective or investigative unit
Yes.
within the Metro Police. But currently, the South African Police Act says only national police has the jurisdiction to investigate crime in South Africa.
Yes, that's right, Lester. We will build our own Cape Town Metro Police Detective Branch, the first in South Africa. And as you know, you and I have discussed this several times over the years. We've been pushing hard for the Metro Police to have this power devolved to us or expanded to us so that we can do investigations ourselves. Three successive police ministers have promised to do it and have, shared sweet nothings with us about how much they agree with that and so on, but has never actually got it done. So we're going to go ahead, and what I would really like to see is if the police or the NPA actually argue against us being able to produce prosecution-worthy dockets for violent criminals that our officers arrest in Cape Town. And every day we are building more and more evidence of cases where we've handed over suspects to SAPS after our officers have arrested them, only for those cases never to be properly investigated. So let them make the arguments and explain to the public if we cannot investigate those. But I think that we actually will be able to win this fight about the powers if we bring it to a head, and we are going to bring it to a head.
Why wait for November? Why not now? You are right, and we do have police commissioners who have said, yeah, in the province and nationally, who agree on paper that there should be a
Yes.
level of devolution. You have a Gauteng Premier, Panyaza Lasufi, who also says, yes, Gauteng would also like its own policing powers. Why wait for November? Why not challenge a case in court right now to say that metros and capable metros should be having some level of investigative capacity?
Well, yeah, on the powers front, we are going to do that. So the thing that actually brought this to a head is the fact that there's a SAPS amendment bill that has just been tabled last month in Parliament. And we were promised for the longest time that don't worry, when the SAPS amendment bill comes, your amendments will be in the bill. Of course, surprise, surprise, there was nothing in the bill that talks about devolution. In fact, the only thing that is devolved in the bill is public order policing. That's the only thing. And of course, they benefit. SAPS wants us to help with public order policing because they are often overwhelmed in public order policing. But the thing that we want to help with, which is investigations, they've conveniently left out of the bill. So the bill proves that devolution is possible because it actually does devolve public order policing in the bill, but not the criminal investigation element. So we are going to bring that to a head very soon because of the bill that's before Parliament, and we may even take court action before the November election. But the building of the detective branch will wait until after November.
Now, there are statistics out there that says out of every 100 crime-related firearms that are recovered in Cape Town, only five result in successful convictions. That's 5%. Is this an investigative incapacity or is this a prosecutorial incapacity?
No, it's purely, well, not purely investigative, but overwhelmingly investigative capacity issue. We've painstakingly gone through all those cases, a research project that took many months, and we published the results. That's where that 5% comes from. And you find that overwhelmingly the other cases that have dropped off the court roll, it's because they've never been properly investigated. They are still either awaiting sometimes 18 months for a simple forensic report from the SAPS ballistics laboratory to confirm that this is in fact a firearm. Literally, that's all they need to confirm. this thing that we have in front of us, this chunk of metal that looks like a firearm, is it actually a deadly firearm? Yes, it is. That's what the ballistics lab needs to confirm. And sometimes they wait 18 months for that certificate to confirm that. And then the matter just falls off the roll. The NPA moves on to different things. Other times they have that certificate, but they never, they never speak to witnesses. They don't do the other basics of the case investigation, and the case is never prosecuted.
Critics of the DA in opposition in civil society often point out that poverty, unemployment, social exclusion is what fuels gang recruitment. How does your policing strategy then address these root causes? This what's known as the whole of society approach. Instead of pushing firepower, technology, investigations, why not deal with the real root of gang and violence? Besides promising greater investigative capacity using of the technology, where are the violence interrupters? Where are the early warning systems? Where are the social workers or the community workers that when there is gang violence, uptick in shootings, that people go in and try and calm things down in communities?
So we really do believe actually in the wisdom of what's called the whole of society approach. And everything that we do in the city is focused on getting the economy here to grow faster, to get people out of poverty. And that has to happen and is happening. And all the investments that we are making in services, in nicer community facilities, in working swimming pools, all of that yes, we want people to have a dignified, a nice community facility. There's a safety element to that as well. But the fact is you can do all of those things, but if your criminal justice system simply isn't working, you are still not going to defeat crime. When residents tell you exactly who the criminal is, and you say to the police, why hasn't this person been convicted? Well, they've been arrested 10 times, but every time they are released and the case falls off the court roll or is dismissed because of poor investigations. That cannot sustain. It cannot ever work like that. We will never, ever get to the bottom of crime if we carry on like that. So we have to do this detectives force.
Geordin, I can appreciate and I understand, and it's the DA's prerogative to make this an electoral issue. But again, you have police commissioners, you have at least one premier in Gauteng, and from what I understand, there are other safety and security MECs in this country, many of them belonging and members of the ANC, saying, yes, we would appreciate, we actually do want a devolution of policing power from the national SAPs down to provinces, if not metros. Why isn't there greater cooperation with those commissioners, provincial commissioners, with provincial MECs, saying we all agree on this? Why not all work together to convince a national police minister, a national committee in parliament to adopt these changes that sees a devolution of power? And I appreciate that this is your election issue, and you have every right to do so.
But look, we have really tried to do this. What's the word? The collegial, cooperative, the polite way, whatever adjective you want to use. We've tried for literally 4 years to work through 3 different police ministers. And each time we receive this long string of commitments about how we're going to work with the SAP's legal office, we're going to work with the state advocate's office, and we're going to get these things right. And it just never goes anywhere. And part of me also feels like I have allowed myself to actually be played for too long by all these successive promises. And then at the end of the day, you even got police commissioners, as you say, who say that this should happen. They've always been the ones in the meetings who have opposed it. The ministers have supported it, the SAPs has opposed it. Now you've even got SAPs, senior SAPs people saying we support this, and still it does not happen from their side. So I now see it has to, if it's going to happen, it's going to be fought and won, and it has to be from our side.
I have it on some good authority that there are even politicians from in the national government who would even mention to the city of Cape Town, please raise this in MINMEC meetings because we aren't allowed to mention this. What is the What is, I'm going to use the word obsession, what is the obsession with a national government holding on to policing power when even members of national government and provincial administration say we would want to? What is the reason to holding on to this particular constitutional prerogative?
They've always presented it as some kind of competition, and we've always said and I want to make clear again today, we are not trying to take away this power from SAPS. We want to expand this power to Metro Police officers so that we can do it as well, not only us, and so that we can ultimately, it's about getting that 5% conviction number up. And that is something that is going to be undoubtedly good for the public, for the communities. But they're very sensitive about this idea that we are trying to compete with SAPS, and it's not about that. It's about trying to help SAPS to get violent crime under control and get those conviction numbers up. So they've got to get over that hurdle. And you are absolutely right that there's there's at least one other premier other than the one that you mentioned, Premier Lessufi, who's been very outspoken. There's another premier who is in contact with me, who's very supportive and says, please keep pushing this. He hasn't said so publicly, so I won't out him yet, but there's actually very widespread support for this, and now is the time. I would just say to those people, now is the time. We've got to bring this argument to a head in Parliament and in our various cities and provinces. Now is the time, and that's what we will do in Cape Town.
Geordin Hill-Lewis is the DA leader, is also the mayor of the city of Cape Town.